welcome to the IoT podcast show. I'm your host, Tom White. Today I am joined by Oyvind Birkenes. Oyvind is the CEO of Airthings, a revolutionary IoT manufacturer creating world-class radon detection systems and indoor air quality monitors using the most accurate sensors possible on the market, something very close to our hearts and spoken about a lot in the world today. Welcome to the IoT podcast show, Oyvind. It's lovely to meet you.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Oyvind, could you explain a little bit more about yourself and what got you into the wonderful world of IoT?
Yeah, that's a long history. I mean, I came from the semiconductor business, and they were making wireless devices that connects everything from TVs and phones to garage door openers and water meters and electricity meters to the cloud. So that's kind of my background. And in 2015, I get to know this company, Airthings, and which had very unique technology. And then we decided to make this an IoT company, which has been a great ride since 2015.
Okay, so you've been with the company coming up to 6 years now, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it's something that's spoken about a lot, I believe. Air quality, pollution, and something that's come to the forefront, certainly here in the UK. In fact, last year it was reported in London for the first time, I believe, ever, that a young teenage boy actually lost his life, and it was triggered through the intense smog that he had from walking backwards and forwards to school for a number of years, right? And I think, if anything, this is at the forefront of people's mind, that this is a really important subject. And is that what attracted you to joining Airthings? One of the reasons, perhaps?
Yeah, so when I decided to join this was more the people that were already there, the founders. They were particle physicists that worked at CERN, like outside Geneva,
yes.
and they found a new technology to actually measure alpha particles from radon, so to detect radon gas. And radon gas is maybe the worst pollutant and that many people have at their homes, and it's the leading cause of lung cancer for those that don't smoke. So there's like thousands and thousands of people that die every year in Europe, and more than 20,000 in US every year because of this. So that when I understood this core sensor technology that these people had created, I saw, wow, there's an opportunity here,
yeah.
and really to inform more people about the danger of air and what they can do to improve their air quality.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say CERN, actually, because as part of my university degree, I did a computing for real-time systems course. The placement year was actually at CERN. So a number of interns came out to CERN.
Yeah.
Fantastic for some of the work that they've done in the past, and people
Absolutely.
have gone on to do amazing things.
Yeah.
Oyvind, a lot of people are aware about air pollution, outside in cities, as I mentioned at the start, and it's something that's at the forefront of people's mind. But we rarely hear about indoor air quality, or not as much, certainly. I mean, why should people care so much about this?
Yes, so the thing is, when people, like you say, people hear about air quality, think about, yes, like London or Beijing in a cold winter day when it's smog outside. But the thing is that 90% of our time we spend indoors. And there's been so much research on this now. There's a very good group, for instance, at Harvard as well, and EPA in US, they say now, in average, the indoor air is 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air. The problem indoors is that there's a lot of, like, you have all the paint, you have the carpets, you have all the interiors of the building, you have radon gas sitting in buildings and getting to high levels. There's particles, there's high CO2 levels, and there's high risk of spreading of viruses and bacteria. It's much higher risk indoor than outdoor. And the reason is buildings are not ventilated in the right way, and it's not done in a good way. And it's remarkable to see how these buildings that we are all in every day and spend 90% of our time, they're not very smart. And that's what we at Airthings is really focusing on, to empower people and buildings and the planet to breathe better, and really focusing on having really easy to use and understandable sensor technology to monitor air and also come with the right insight so you can take the right actions to improve the air.
Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic, and I think people sometimes overlook that, don't they? I've heard a phrase in the past to say that your carpet and your floor is 10 times
Yes,
dirtier than the street outside,
absolutely.
right? But you would never really think about that.
No.
You'd think that the street was a lot dirtier. So it's such an interesting concept. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I love IoT and I'm so passionate about the industry, because it plays such a massive role in ensuring healthy and safe environments. For those that are listening at the moment, can you explain the role that IoT plays in air quality solutions a little bit more, and especially how this might help us coming out of the pandemic?
Yeah. So when we want to empower the world, the businesses, the offices, people to breathe better, I mean, what it means is that we are visualizing the air around you. We visualize, and you can see it kind of what contaminants, what's the ingredient of the air I breathe. You eat maybe 1 or 2 pounds of food per day, while you breathe 30 pounds of air every day. People count their steps, people look at ingredients of what they eat more and more. And more people get aware that the importance of the air you breathe. And when we spend 90% of our time indoors and the air is much worse there than outdoor, it's very important for us, and that's kind of our purpose here, to visualize that, to show people what air are you breathing and what can you do about it to make it better. And very many times it's very easy to do that. So what we do is to provide sensors that are all battery operated, all wireless. They connect to the cloud. They're nice to nice looking sensors that you can easily mount on the ceiling or on the walls, and they're all connected to the cloud, where we do cloud analytics, and we provide you with a very nice user experience. Like if you were to go into a commercial building and look at the data that's maybe already there from the building management system that's maybe installed by one of the big companies like Siemens or ABB or something. Nobody understands that data if you're not like really educated into that space. We bring kind of an experience, dashboards and apps on the phones that everybody understands. It's very easy to understand kind of when you use Airthings solutions. And we have these sensors and these dashboards and apps and technology for commercial buildings and also for people's homes. Protect your family to make sure your kids and your family are breathing healthy air. And we are in schools and in office buildings all around the world.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And in terms of the sensors and the connectivity between this, now, I spend a lot of time in this industry, so I can probably guess the variety that you're using, but could you talk a little bit more about the specific technology within these sensors?
Yes, so we have everything from a sensor where you can easily connect just with Bluetooth to your phone. So you have the sensor maybe at your living room, and you just open your phone. The phone will download data from the instrument over Bluetooth, connects it to our cloud where we do the analytics, and we bring it back to your phone so you get kind of a good understanding of the air in your living room. So that's the simplest approach. And then we have also now products with Wi-Fi. So let's say you have in your living room, the products will always monitor the air and bring that data to the cloud, and you always have live data wherever you are on your phone or on a dashboard. And for commercial buildings, it's very different, because in a commercial building, you typically don't want to connect to Wi-Fi networks because of security reasons. The internet security guys would not like to put a lot of IoT devices typically on local networks. So there we have cellular networks. So the sensor connects to a hub with a very long range communication which is based in Europe on 868 megahertz. So it penetrates walls and floors in a very good way, very like LoRa, more or less. It's just a proprietary version of LoRa. And then you bring that to the hub, and the hub is the only product that requires power consumption. All the others are battery operated, and the hub has connection to the cloud via the cellular network with NB-IoT, Cat M1 or 4G networks.
Yeah, and that's the right way to do it from a tech perspective. Certainly, cellular within a commercial context.
Yes.
Wi-Fi.
So you're totally independent of any local networks.
Yeah, because and this is something that we're very much involved with IoT security and principles of IoT security, and there's a basis here about how you connect and what that looks like. And in fact, what we've seen through the pandemic is the need for adaptive Wi-Fi solutions in the home. Wi-Fi 6 coming out. We had Cares Links on the show a few months ago, talking about the origins of Wi-Fi and the amount of gadgets in people's homes is going up because people have spent so much time at home. It's widely spoken about at the moment. The silicon companies are finding it a challenge to get these out there, right? Is that affecting the IoT market as such, or even do you see that yourself in getting hold of some of this hardware to utilize with your customers?
I mean, it's certainly now a very hot semiconductor market, and it's struggling to get enough components. We saw this coming a long time ago, and we planned well, and maybe we put in the right inventories. But we certainly see that things change, and suddenly you're expecting to get some components, and it's pushed out, and it's a bit of a crazy market right now. So sometimes we'll end up buying kind of more expensive components from some brokers and all that just to secure production. So for us, the most important part is to make sure production is running and we have enough volumes, and then this bump in the semiconductor market will go away. It's because everybody starts to order more when this happens, and everybody books more and more, and then after a few quarters that's going to go down a bit, and suddenly people have more than enough semiconductors. So I think this is a passing kind of trend over a few quarters, but certainly a bit of a challenge for many companies right now.
Yeah, indeed. It's always peaks and troughs, right? It's never at a level playing field. It's either too much or too little. Going back to the IoT sensors within buildings, aside of air quality, could you talk a little bit more about what else you can monitor with the air via the sensors? I'd be interested to know the full gamut of information.
Yes, so we monitor kind of all the air pollutants, all the key air pollutants in the air. The interesting thing, when I sit in a meeting room and you have one of our sensors, we can, with analyzing that air over time in our cloud, we can see how many people are in the room. We can see the air exchange rate. So let's say the air exchange rate is low compared to the number of people in the room, which we can monitor with our sensors. You will see that the air that you breathe out is air that I breathe in. So we mix the air much more in that sense, which is certainly not good for transmission of viruses and bacteria. So that's one example of what we can measure. Another thing is that we did an acquisition of a company called Airtight last year, where we also monitored the differential pressure between outdoors and indoors. Right. This is very, very interesting. So in buildings today, there is no real control of the pressure difference between indoor and outdoor. And when there's a pressure difference between indoor and outdoor, it creates draft. There's draft through windows, doors, walls. Throughout the construction of a building, there's draft. So in new buildings, when they install it, typically somebody comes in with very kind of old, maybe with even matchsticks checking, does the air go in and out, and they do some adjustments, and they leave it and go, and now the building is ready to run. And nobody kind of really cares about the pressure after the initial running of the building. Well, the pressure depends heavily on external factors like weather, temperature, wind, and then of course things change in the building, and there's a stack effect with higher buildings. So what we do is to monitor now also the differential pressure between indoor and outdoor very, very accurately with sensors in the building. We don't need so many, typically maybe 5 to 10 sensors in a 10-story building. And we take it to the cloud, we do some analytics on it, and we control the exhaust fan of the building. It's very interesting. In buildings today, the exhaust fans are typically not controlled at all. It's just like a slave of the intake of the air. So when we control that in real time, we can balance so the indoor pressure and outdoor pressure is the same. And with that, there's no draft.
Wow.
So like even in a big shopping center, usually when you go in, there's like these wind tunnels and craziness. You can turn them all off. There's no movement of air between indoor and outdoor. So that's one thing that we are now installing into many buildings. Very interesting technology.
Yeah, that's excellent. How does that actually happen then? So the sensors would obviously understand the information and tell you if there will be a draft based upon the throughput from the outside compared to the pressures inside and outside.
Yeah, so it actually measured the differential pressure. There's like a membrane sensor that detects. So there's a tiny little hole through the wall that actually where you bring in the air and measure the differential pressure. And that information we send via cellular network directly to the cloud, where we have these algorithms that again send back to the building and you control the exhaust fans of
wow. And then that makes a physical change to the
yes,
actual building to shut
to the pressure inside the building.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. And for those that probably aren't aware of the benefits of that, what is the ideal benefit of having that?
Yes, so when you do that and you stop this leakage through the buildings, we automatically save a lot of energy consumption. So what we see in average, we save maybe 15 to 20% of your total energy consumption in the building just by installing this system.
Wow.
And if you look at on the world scale, 40% of the world's energy goes through buildings. A lot of that energy just leaks out because of these systems are based on very old technology. It's not very smart, and that's where we see there's a huge opportunity to save enormous amount of energy waste.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's staggering, isn't it? If you say around 20%, I mean, you've already talking to shopping centres. Instantly, I think of the Dubai Mall, right, which is one of the largest in the world. Saving 20% of that is colossal, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
So that's an important part of what we do. So it's air quality and energy waste. We want to improve both.
Yeah.
Both are important for all of us.
Yeah, and that's honestly that's fantastic, and that's one of the reasons why I was excited to get you on the show, because people may not necessarily know that and the real benefit, and that's such an exciting thing of IoT, because I came from a fairly media-centric background, so I used to do a lot of work with operators, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but at the end of the day, it's just TV, right? It's just films.
Yeah.
But when you're doing things like this, that's a significant, fundamental, useful impact on the world, and something really to be proud of, right? Because it's making a difference, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Oyvind, on that note, what trends are you seeing at the moment in indoor air quality and the sensor tech market? Is there a difference between consumers and businesses, and what is your view on that?
Yeah, and there is certainly that. Also, this pandemic has made people more aware of air quality, that the air quality is actually important. And it was also interesting when the pandemic started, when everybody, you were seeing the news that, there's so clean air outside and everything looks so nice. There's less factories running and airplanes and cars. So everything is nice. While we saw in our cloud that people had never had as bad air quality because they were all working from home, homeschooling, dogs and cats, everything were crammed in their apartment or the house, and we never seen as bad air quality in people's homes. So we see certainly a trend that people get more and more aware of this. We see also a trend that when people want to go back to their office, they want to make sure that air is good, that the ventilation is actually working. There's a lot of focus, especially on US, about the ventilation rates. You need to improve ventilation rates and also get fresh air from outdoor, not just recycle the air. So this is a big trend that we're seeing, and people are getting more and more aware, and we are going to be the leader in this space and drive this moving forward. That's kind of our goal.
Yeah. It's amazing. And in terms, so just so that I'm aware and that people listening are aware, so Airthings is the understanding of the air quality, but not necessarily the treatment of the air to change it. Is that right? So it's more about understanding what needs to be done.
Yeah, so we kind of visualize the air kind of around you. We tell you what are you breathing now. We provide you with the ingredients of what you breathe. And with that analytics, we also tell you what can you do about it. So, for example, simple example, we rolled out in a lot of schools in Netherlands. They wanted to make sure that air quality is good for the students. Air quality is important, yes, because if air quality is bad, you sit many students in a classroom. The students get drowsy, tired. The academic performance goes down. Research shows that very clearly. Same like when you're sitting in a meeting room and everybody are tired and because the air is stale, it's a big effect of your cognitive performance. So certainly you want students to not be drowsy and tired and have poor cognitive performance. The other thing is, of course, now with COVID, that the risk of transmission of viruses also increases a lot when the air exchange is slow and there's many people in a classroom. So we provide a new feature in our sensor so that the teacher will get a visual indication if the air quality is poor. And they can air out the room, maybe they can open windows, maybe they can take the class outside or do things like that. Simple effects. And we tell them what they can do. If it's high radon level, you need to do something else than if it's high CO2 levels, for example.
Yeah.
So that insight we provide. And many times you can solve it quite easily, like opening a window, have fewer people in the room, or maybe you need to contact a professional to do adjustments.
Yeah.
So both for homes and public buildings and commercial buildings, this is what we do.
Okay.
And in commercial buildings, we also can control the HVAC to be more effective, but overall, it's about monitoring, giving the insights and giving insights that people understand and also can act on them themselves.
You've given me the perfect argument to all of my colleagues when I open windows and they tell me it's cold. I can now tell them
Yes.
you would improve your performance due to the fresh air quality.
Absolutely.
But it reminds me, of the casinos in Las Vegas, right? So they pump fresh oxygen around the table in order to keep the people more active and spending more money and so on and so forth, right? So
yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's very clear to say. It's interesting to say that about the Netherlands. So we had Hans Nickel on, head of IoT at Signify, and talking about UVC lighting and how that can get rid of pollutants and what have you within the air, and how they're installing in commercial buildings a solution to actually funnel the air through, so that you don't have this ability to pump fresh air in, that you can clean the air, right? So it's very nice.
So that helps in certain. You can use that technology to remove particles in the air, and you can remove chemicals in the air and VOCs, but you cannot add CO2, for example. To get CO2 levels down, you need fresh air, and that's the key. So it's all about understanding what the problem is.
Yeah,
and sometimes you need to add humidity, like here in at least when it's cold winters in UK or in the Nordics, it's typically very dry air inside, which has certainly some bad side effects.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no, it's fantastic, isn't it? And I think very poignant right now over the last sort of 18 months to 2 years with everything that's been going on, and no doubt, there's such a big call for this. In terms of innovation, so I'm keen to know where we're going with this, Oyvind. IoT is constantly innovating. Virtually on a daily, weekly basis, someone is doing something different, and putting a new spin on things. What does the future look like for Airthings, and also when we talk about air quality driven by sensor-based technology?
So for us, bringing the data with IoT technology to the cloud brings endless opportunities. And we see one thing we just released a few months ago was a mold risk indicator.
Okay.
So we analyze the air and can provide you what's the risk of you actually building up mold into this room. And we've seen a tremendous uptake in UK for this, because many places in UK, basements and you have a lot of humidity, and there's higher risk of growing mold. So we see opportunities that were existing kind of sensor technology. We can bring new use cases because we bring the data to the cloud, we analyze it over time, and bring that type of insight to our customers. So we see that we have only scratched the surface now as we mount these sensors in people's homes and in classrooms and commercial buildings. We see that there's problems everywhere, and many times it's easy to solve it. So it's a really kind of I think this is going to go ubiquitous. It's going to be sensors everywhere at some point, and you don't really notice it, but it makes your life easier, more healthy and more energy efficient.
Yeah, fantastic. I think it's interesting to say that, but also somewhat embarrassing that the UK is the biggest purchaser of mold detection systems in their houses.
Yes.
But it's interesting. I'm recently buying a property, and it's funny that you should see a lot of these garden basements. They have damp problems, right? And it's it really says something about how we built houses a couple of 100 years ago.
And then you could you can do it yourself and install a fan, and there's simple things you can do to actually improve this a lot.
Yeah, and just on that note, so can people buy this directly from the website? Is it B2B, B2BC? How is the setup? How does that look?
Yes, so we have solutions for in the consumer segments and for commercial buildings and public buildings. So for consumers, and you can go to airthings.com. You can buy it there. You can also buy it on retailers and Amazon and other partners. But airthings.com, you have all the information. You can get all the products shipped directly. Also for in the B2B space, for commercial buildings, public buildings, you get all the information you need from airthings.com, from LinkedIn and Facebook as well.
Fantastic. Oyvind, thank you so much for coming on to the IoT podcast show. Honestly, it's been really fascinating and great to hear some of the things that you're doing at Airthings. It's truly something special. You just mentioned it there about obviously finding out more information to go to airthings.com. Where else can our listeners find you? I assume you're on social media as well, perhaps?
Yes, social media. You'll find us on Instagram, on YouTube. You can see videos from us there. Just check us up, Airthings or airthings.com, and you'll get a lot of interesting information.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on to the show, Oyvind.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Really great to be here.